Hey, it's 11:35. I'm Diane Michael with Beyond the Boardroom and Callan Group Communications, and I'm joined by my CAM partner, Lindsay Lombardi with Coastal Living Association Management and Dominion Management. Whether this is your first webinar Wednesday or you've been joining us for months or years, we're so glad you're here. Thank you for investing your time in your professional growth and in the communities that you serve. At Beyond the Boardroom, our mission is simple: to make quality education convenient, practical, and accessible for CAMs and board members. Whether you're joining us from your office, on your phone, on the go, we're committed to bringing industry experts directly to you. Thank you for your incredible support, because you continue to come back every Wednesday that we offer courses. We have grown the program from 1 day a month to 2 days a month. On the second and fourth Wednesdays, we offer that free CAM continuing education. Also, we just added this month a monthly HOA board member education series. So we're offering, in partnership with Martell and Ozum, a board member course every month. So be sure to be watching for those emails that are coming through to you weekly. I know that you get a lot of emails. I know it's a lot sometimes. However, we're constantly adding courses to the program. So, like, for example, the HOA board members are always invited to these courses because it really is topical, relevant, current information that they should want to know. But we also know people need credit. And so we have sprinkled in board member credit over the years, but now we have a consistent monthly program. And if you don't read your email newsletters, you wouldn't know about that. So be sure to add that newsletter to your safe sender box. If you're not getting those newsletters weekly, that means it's probably going to your spam or your junk. Just be sure to check those boxes and add that email to your safe sender list. Also, we're excited to announce that registration is now open for our Get Credentialed 2026. It's a 2-day virtual event just here on Zoom, where we are going to give CAMs as many courses as possible that go towards the 15 credit hours that are due this September 30th, 2026. So if you didn't know that your license has to have the 15 CEUs by September 30th, 2026, this is your friendly reminder. I will put into the chat a link to register for both of those days so that you can get, right now I think we're at 9 hours, including all of the legal requirements. We will also be having the webinar Wednesday on the 2nd and 4th in August as well, which will have courses that are not going to be in the program so that you can get even more than 9. Lindsay, do you want to go over how credit works this morning?
I do. So, as those of you who have been here all day today know, at the end of the course, we will share a link in the chat, and that link will take you to Callan Group's webpage, where the registration form is for you to submit for credit. You will need today's course name. You will need the code word, which I will give at the end of the course. So please stay tuned. If you don't have the code word, you cannot get credit. And all your CAM license information. So first name, middle initial, last name, as it's stated on your CAM license, your CAM license number, and the information that we provide for the code word and the course name. And that's all. It's real easy. You just got to follow the instructions.
Okay. I always like to show our association allies where you're coming in from. The chat is open. Let's show Billy where you're coming in from. If you're a board member, if you're a CAM, I always like to show that we are representing the state of Florida. Billy Genovese with VerdeGo Landscape is our next presenter. Today's session is led by a professional who understands that great landscaping is about more than appearance. It's about protecting property values, enhancing community appeal, and creating long-term success for associations. Billy serves as Director of Business Development for VerdeGo Landscape, a Heartland company, and has been a valued member of the organization for more than 8 years. Throughout his tenure, he has worked across VerdeGo's Palm Coast, Daytona Beach, and St. Augustine operations, helping commercial clients develop landscape strategies that thrive in Northeast Florida's unique environment. Specializing in commercial landscape maintenance and client relations, Billy works closely with property managers, board members, and ownership groups to identify practical, cost-effective solutions that balance aesthetics, sustainability, and operational efficiency. His hands-on approach and deep understanding of Florida landscapes have made him a trusted resource for communities seeking to maximize the value of their landscape investments. With years of experience helping associations navigate landscaping challenges, seasonal planning, and long-term property enhancement, Billy brings real-world expertise and actionable insights to today's webinar Wednesday presentation. Hello, welcome,
Hi, good
Billy.
morning.
Good to see you.
Thank you again for always a great introduction. I appreciate it. All right, well, we'll just jump right in. Today's course is going to be on decision fatigue in HOAs. Um, so, again, this is HOAs and condos associations. As stated, I am in the landscaping industry, so a lot of the examples that I'll be going over will be, geared toward the landscaping side, but just remember all of this information can be used for any vendor decision, whether you're talking about roofing, paving, irrigation, gates, lighting, pools, elevators, any of that stuff that you have to make a decision with your board. This can all be, translated to those. Um, Most boards are made up of well-intentioned volunteers. That's where, a lot of this decision fatigue comes in. The problem is that they are asked to make repeated decisions in a setting where everyone has an opinion. None of them have unlimited time, and every decision affects money, appearance, the residents, and then also risk for the community. One of the things I always start off with is, kind of think about your last board meeting where a decision may have dragged on much longer than it should have. Was the real problem the issue itself, or was it the decision making process unclear or led to just a longer period of time? So hopefully after today, our goal is to kind of, work on what we can change to limit that decision fatigue. So, we're going to focus on, limit unnecessary choices, trying to use a shared criteria, and then standardize reoccurring decisions so it makes it easier as you guys move through your process. I did put a little cartoon together just to kind of give an example of decision fatigue that I think all of us can kind of relate to. So we have a nice couple. They're sitting down for movie night at the house. They got their drinks, they got their popcorn. Everybody's happy. They're ready to get going. Um, Start flipping through. I think everyone does the same. You're clicking through title after title. 10 minutes goes by, 15 minutes goes by. That fun attitude starts wearing off. Nobody's making a decision. Everyone's getting a little frustrated. And then finally, you're throwing remotes through TVs. The guy's drinking a little whiskey and she's off crying to her room because he was yelling. And then no one watches a movie. So that's kind of decision fatigue. I think all of us, kind of go through on a weekly basis when we're looking at all the decisions and we're trying to find a, particular movie. So just threw that in there, a little bit of fun at the beginning. All right. So what is decision fatigue? Decision fatigue is a mental exhaustion that comes from making repeated decisions, especially when the choices are complex, emotionally charged, poorly framed, or too numerous, as in picking a movie. Some of the signals, that lead to decision fatigue. One is going to be decision avoidance. So that's when your board is trying to make a decision and they say, let's table it until next month. And that's all fine. But some of those smaller issues, as you keep pushing them off, are going to become larger. Bids that were turned in may have expired. The pricing may have changed. The vendors that you were hoping to use had you scheduled at one point, and now because you pushed it on, their schedule can't meet what you were asking for originally. So it just becomes, a longer time and things get carried on and pushed further. Another signal is analysis paralysis. So the board is constantly asking you for more options, even though you have enough information that is already there. More information becomes a delay tactic instead of a decision aid. So again, more options leads to it taking a little bit longer. The other one is a lot of boards will default to the loudest voice. So you get a board of 4 or 5 people. One of them is the most outspoken, and they kind of take over the conversation for everybody else. When that happens, that final decision may not reflect the community priorities or the long-term value when you only have one voice making that decision. Another one is if you go off price only decisions. The lowest number wins because it's the easiest to compare, but that doesn't translate to the community. They may sacrifice the durability of the decision, the service quality, or even the life cycle cost of things that could come up down the road if you just go off price alone. And then lastly, are emotional decisions. So you get a bunch of resident complaints. The meeting gets, a little tension is pushed over to the board, and then that board can then run into a rush decision because they're trying to, make sure that they're taking care of the residents or knocking off those complaints. And that affects the community because you're reacting under pressure instead of reacting to the priorities. So, decision fatigue does not mean a board is bad at its job. It just means the board needs a better decision-making system. So, why are HOA boards especially vulnerable? One, board decision making is uniquely difficult because board members often operate in a pressure-filled middle ground. So they are all volunteers, but residents expect professional results. They're responsible for the community outcomes, but they may not have technical expertise in the subject being discussed. So again, the reality of the board is that it's a volunteer leadership position. The board members are showing up after work. They have limited time, limited attention. A lot of their day is spent in their actual life, and then they're trying to come to a meeting and make a decision that night. So as far as your CAM opportunities go, with this is if you can try to make the decision package simpler and easier to act on when you're providing them the information, that will help, eliminate that decision fatigue. Board members have limited subject matter or expertise. Boards may not know how to compare landscaping, irrigation, drainage, or maintenance options. It's just not part of their everyday life. So your CAM opportunity would then be to translate the vendor information into a plain language criteria that they can all evaluate. Of course, we're always going to deal with the resident pressure. You get complaints, emails. Nowadays, you're getting bombarded with social media posts that are going to create urgency and emotion. The CAM's job is to try to separate the noise from what true decision criteria need to be. Are the emergencies really emergencies, or is it just a resident complaining about a small little issue? The other one would be our budget constraints. So every choice feels like a trade-off against your dues, against your reserves, or other priorities that may be coming up. So as the CAMs, you can try to tie your recommendation to a budget category and show long-term value with that decision. And then, of course, we're always going to have competing opinions. So everyone's going to have an opinion on where the aesthetics should look, what the cost should be, how convenient it is for the community, and then risk often point in a different direction. So you tie all that together. One of the things we'll discuss in a little bit is using a decision matrix. So that's an easier way to take all of those competing opinions and put it into one kind of category that then really shows what vendor should be chosen, upon the preferences that you set for that particular decision. So HOA just gets, loaded up with a bunch of stuff. So again, it's not when you're in your boards a single item that may seem overwhelming on its own. It's when you have meetings that have, accumulated load where you've taken decisions that could have been done 2 months before and are now moved into a meeting where you have to decide on 5 or 6 things. So again, the volunteer decision makers, they have no time to breathe in between the items that you're trying to get accomplished. They may not be putting their full, mind or capability into each one of the proposals or the different categories. and that just, compounds and accumulates, and then that's what can lead to that decision fatigue. Yeah. On the landscaping side, again, um, this creates a lot of overload, and the main part of that is it covers kind of everything. So there's no other line item that you have that is going to be visible to everyone. Everyone has an emotional feeling about it. It's always reoccurring, especially here in Florida. And then everyone has their own personal opinion. So if you can make it easier, one of the things I always try to get across to cams and to boards, especially on the landscaping side, is if you can make the items that are quantifiable and make those apples to apples, then that's definitely going to help you in your process. Those items kind of include your mulch. So your vendor should be able to give you the, cubic yards of mulch that they're putting down every year. They should be able to give you the exact number of annual flowers that you're putting in every year. They should have the number of palms that are being trimmed. Those are all items that you can give those quantities to, and then let your vendors bid off those, and those are going to be apples to apples. Landscaping in particular, it's a very labor driven industry, so that's where your distinction is going to come in, that your board will have to decide on is, the maintenance side of it, who's giving them the best value and the most time that's going to be spent on their property. So again, eliminating decisions, giving people the quantities so they can bid apples to apples. So a couple of the challenges that you're going to come across, especially one is going to be that vendor selection. The board's question is going to be, do we choose the lowest price? Do we choose a familiar vendor? Or is it going to go off the strongest recommendation? So where the fatigue happens is the board compares unlike proposals and cannot tell whether the differences are price, scope, or quantity. So again, do your best to create that clarity so that the decision is being made evenly and not just open to opinions. On the landscaping side, we get a lot that comes in on design disagreements, especially in the enhancement part of it. So if you are going through like a big enhancement project that's going to cost a lot of money, my suggestion is if you have maybe one or two vendors that can give you a couple renderings, you can narrow that down to where you have, two designs. You can have the number of plants, have all of that, and then that will help, kind of eliminate. So again, your questions are going to be on the plant palette, what color mulch, what's the actual concept behind the enhancement. So if you have a couple that you can narrow down, the board really likes, then you can send that out, to the vendors to get proposals, and it should be kind of apples to apples as far as that goes. One of the other ones is trying to decide between, maintenance or doing upgrade decisions. So, the board's going to ask, should we repair the current condition, replace it, or invest in a longer term improvement? It's that battle between short-term costs versus long-term value. I give an example. We have a community in St. Augustine that over the years, it's a very large 55 plus community. They were spending well over $250,000 to $300,000 a year on irrigation repairs. And that was because they just kept fixing things little by little instead of looking at the project as a whole and what was best for the community. So we were able to actually go in, and for about that same cost, we rewired, replaced all their, irrigation, and that has drastically dropped the number of irrigation repairs that they have to do each year. So even though they're spending money up front, then they're saving money over time. And then that's kind of the decisions that you'll have to make on maintenance versus upgrading. The other one that we run into are seasonal and emergency decisions. If you don't have a plan in place, especially this time of year in Florida, we never know really when a storm's going to hit. That seasonal pressure makes decisions feel urgent. And without a process in place, it can create confusion. The board doesn't have all the information in place to make, a choice. And again, it can get pushed on a little bit further. And it's the same as for emergency situations. Make sure you have a plan in place so you know, do we approve the work immediately? Do we wait for another quote to come in? Or ask the vendor to just patch the issue and move on to the next. So again, the big thing I try to get across here is pressure creates rushed approvals and inconsistent precedent. So put a plan in place with your board, have a set amount of money you can spend, but know when that decision comes that you can make it and not put that back on the board. So it's one more thing that they have to think about. So the real cost of decision fatigue. Um, Again, this one, decision fatigue has consequences that are easy to underestimate. The visible symptom is a long meeting that drags on and wears everybody down, but the deeper cost is in the delayed work, the inconsistent standards, vendor frustration, resident dissatisfaction, and then reactive spending. So, um, a lot of the things that come with decision fatigue are the items that are up on the screen. But one of the biggest impacts is your board burnout and turnover. So, board members just get wore out of having to come to those long meetings, having repeated conflicts with other board members, and that can really affect the community because when people leave the board or move on, you're losing the knowledge that they have gained over the years to help make those decisions. And then you have new members that are going to come in, and all that's going to do is restart old debates if you haven't been able to make a decision before that happens. Another impact is the inconsistent property aesthetics. So you could have one area of your community that decides to get upgraded while another similar area is ignored. The cost of the community there is going to be your time because you're going to start receiving emails from residents that perceive unfairness. And then the community loses its visual consistency because you're only fixing something one at a time. Another impact would be budget inefficiency. So the board keeps approving one-off fixes instead of doing planned improvements, kind of like the irrigation that we talked about. So reactive spending replaces strategic maintenance. And then, so again, that's the cost of the community. You end up spending more for something that you could have taken care of. So the other impact is delayed approvals. Projects move from one meeting to the next without resolution. This again, especially now, we see what the price of gas does. It kind of goes up and down. That also affects the cost of the materials. So if you keep pushing projects off, that vendor pricing may change. You lose the timing window of when it can get done, and then the problems just worsen over time. And then lastly is the resident dissatisfaction. So residents see indecision, mixed messages, or no visible progress. And that just leads to them losing trust in the board and management. And then it just kind of keeps snowballing from there. So a couple things that you can do as far as kind of trying to change the framework behind what everything is limiting choices for the board. So the board really needs to see every possible option. They need the best options. Presenting too many choices feels thorough on your behalf, but it often pushes the board into confusion. A stronger approach is to screen options before the meeting and present two or three credible paths. So, in our instance, a lot of times you can get 5 or 6 landscaping proposals. Prices can really vary from one to another. That's what we kind of see. So, if you do get 5 or 6, one of the easier ways to break it down may be to throw out the lowest bid, throw out the highest bid, focus on the ones that are kind of centered around each other, and then be able to present to the board, the best decision from there. So, again, if you're looking at patterns, the way we kind of set our stuff up, A week pattern when you're doing proposals would be to send the board every vendor proposal and just ask them what they think. That just leads again to opinions, people having different criterias. So the better pattern would be to take those proposals, summarize them, present the top two or three options with clear pros, cons, and then recommendations attached to it. A weak pattern on the enhancement side would be just throwing 8 plant pallets because the vendor can install any of them. You want to narrow that down, show two or three that fit your budget, maintenance capacity, community style, and climate conditions. Especially in Florida, make sure you're talking. If you're really close to the ocean, you're going to be not going to be able to use as many plant options as you can if you're, a little more inland where it's not affected by the salt water and the different elements that are out there. Um, One of the last things for a week pattern would be to ask the board to decide from scratch during the meeting. So if you just got the proposals in and you hand them to them that night and say, let's go through them and make a decision, that's definitely going to lead to a lot of fatigue and a lot of overload. And that also goes back to delayed approvals and pushing decisions on. So the better pattern would be to define the decision before the meeting. That way, that night you can approve it, reject it, revise it, or go back and request a little missing information, and then you'll be able to make the decision at the next meeting. So that's kind of the framework one is limiting choices. Framework two would be to come up with a decision matrix. So, decision matrix replaces opinion-based debate with shared evaluation criteria. Instead of I like option A, the conversation becomes option A scores highest on the criteria our board agreed to use. Again, this is going to shift the discussion from a personal preference to collective standards, and it will help move the meeting forward. So if you're building this from scratch, one of the recommended criteria that we use is there on the right. So you'd want to have something for cost, longevity, aesthetics, maintenance, resident impact, and budget alignment. Again, the matrix gives every board member the same lens. It acknowledges that multiple valid criteria exist while preventing any single criteria like price from dominating by default. So we see this a lot in definitely our CDDs in Florida. So again, they usually work out of 100 points. The one we showed you kind of is just ranking everyone from 1 to 5. So you have your three options, you rank them the highest, and you come up with that criteria, across the board. So if each of your members are there, we come up with the highest point, and then that's who, gets pushed along for the, recommendation to the board. And again, this just helps that you have that agreed criteria, and then people can't go back and forth on, how they want to do it. We've seen this done several ways, especially with CDDs. They can have the board grade them individually ahead of time and then come together at the meeting, talk about why they graded it one way or the other, and then come up with a final grading that the board can all agree on. So you can use this in several different ways, but it is a great way to just eliminate, especially on the price side. If you're just going low price, they may not have the employees, they may not have the background of a company that can take care of your particular property. So again, it's just a nice way to come up with that final decision. So the CAM's role. So you are the decision facilitator. CAMs do not replace the board. You guys are there to help the board make better decisions. This is a very important distinction, and staying on the right side of that line protects you guys professionally while improving the governance outcomes. So we have a do this, avoid that. So under the do this, you want to organize information before it reaches the boardroom, clarify the criteria at the start of each discussion, limit unnecessary options through your pre-filtering, separate facts from opinions, try to keep the discussion moving along so they're not getting stuck on one particular area, and then document the decision clearly and immediately. So again, avoiding it would be making the decision for the board. So you definitely you don't want to be hiding material information that could affect the outcome. If you're pushing one person or a vendor over another, that could be a conflict. And then allowing the loudest voice to control the process will always kind of, keep things from moving along. I always suggest having a script in place. I tell everyone I'm a big Chat GPT guy, so you can hop in there and for kind of each instant, just put what you're looking for. But one of the scripts that we've kind of come up with that you can use is when you're presenting something to the board, what I like is it says, based on budget, maintenance needs, and long-term value, here are two options that best fit the board's goals. Option A is a lower upfront cost. Option B is the stronger long-term value. And then our recommendation is option B because it reduces future maintenance and keeps the community aligned with its landscape needs. So you can use that again for any type of decision, whether you're breaking it down for roofing. But if you have something typed up like this that you present to the board, it just makes you look very professional, and it also helps them to make that decision. So um, the categories anchors to agreed criteria. So you have budget, maintenance, long-term value. It's not a personal preference. Prevents or presents structured options. So two clear choices. It's not an open-ended menu. Offers a professional recommendation. The CAM's expertise is visible and useful, and it preserves the board's authority. They still get to make the decision, but you are able to give them information that can help them get there. Here's a little before and after. So same board, better process. So an unstructured process would be the board receives 7 vendor proposals with no common format, no evaluation criteria established. Resident complaints arrive as emails read aloud at a meeting. Competing price quotes dominate the conversation. The decision is then tabled, and this is done for a third consecutive meeting. So you can see how if it's unstructured, it could carry on. But if you have that structured process where the board receives 2 pre-screened recommendations, the decision matrix included with the scoring, budget impact clearly explained up front, the CAM prevents a professional recommendation with reasoning, the decision should hopefully be made that night in a single meeting. So the people didn't change, the process changed, and that was able to kind of keep you guys moving along a little bit. So here are some just immediate actions that you can start taking now. The best next step is a small one. Pick one reoccurring decision in your community that consistently creates conflict or delay, and apply one of the 4 frameworks to it before the next board meeting. So this is something you guys can do. Identify those reoccurring decisions. Make a list of 5 to 10 decisions your board revisits most frequently. These are your highest value standardized targets. The other one would be create a 2 to 3 option template, build a simple recommendation format, best value, lowest, acceptable, long-term recommended, and then use that with your next vendor presentation. You can also start building one of the decision matrices that are going to best fit your board. As far as landscaping goes, you can work on creating one landscape standard that can be used throughout your entire community. And then unblock one delayed decision. So if you have one that's been repeated over and over, you're on your 3rd or 4th meeting, try to narrow in on that and see if you can use one of the action steps to help you push that to where it will actually have a decision made on it and not move to the next meeting. Here are some of our key takeaways. Decision fatigue is real. It affects even experienced, well-intentioned volunteer boards. The cognitive load of HOA governance is genuinely heavy. More choices create worse decisions. Try to get things narrowed down. Frameworks are going to beat opinions, so have that set in place and not just letting your board fire off, random things that they think is going to be best. Have an evaluation process in there that's structured and standardized. Standards reduce repeated debate. That just goes back to the last thing we talked about. It's just easier to see something quantifiable with an actual scoring than it is to just keep putting opinions out there. And then CAMs, you can improve the decision-making quality by, just taking a little bit more time and putting stuff in place that can help your board. Here's a quick reference. So board decision making simplifier. Again, this is take a little screenshot or whatever. If you notice that you have more than 3 options on the table, narrow it down to 2 or 3 before the meeting. Board is debating personal preferences. Try to gear them back to the agreed upon criteria and using a decision matrix. This decision has come up before. Propose creating a community standard to prevent reoccurrence. Then if the board is delaying without resolution, clarify exactly what information is missing and commit to providing it. The issue is budget sensitive. Show upfront costs, long-term maintenance costs, and the financial risk of delaying. And then if you notice that emotions are rising in the room, slow the discussion down, name the criteria, and redirect the decision to the decision needed. So I always do like to try to leave you something. Obviously, this format doesn't allow us to really kind of go back and forth and go through answers, but this is just some items that we like to have out there when you do have your, meetings with your managers, maybe in your office. You can throw some questions out there that you guys can kind of go through. So the first one is, what creates the most disagreement? Which decisions consistently generate conflict or take multiple meetings to resolve? Possibly with your management team, you can throw those out there and come up with, solutions that you can spread across the entire company. Where does your board get stuck? What could be standardized? And then what information would help? So those are just items you guys can all talk about together and hopefully put a plan in place. All right. I think it's time to review kind of what we went over. So do you want me to run through the questions?
We'll do it together. Should I open
Okay,
the chat up?
sure.
All right, let's do it. All right, everyone. Let's see if you were paying attention before lunch.
All right, we
I love
ready?
this PowerPoint, Billy. It's really nice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You want to do all of ours?
Again, I'll send you to my AI guru that helped me
There
put
you
all
go.
this together. So
Okay,
question 1 is, what is decision fatigue?
they're all coming in. C's.
All right, it is. Answer C is mental exhaustion from making too many decisions over time. As decision fatigue increases, people are more likely to delay, avoid, rush, or default to the loudest voice. Question 2, what is the primary cause of decision fatigue in HOAs?
Okay, I see some B's.
All right.
Oh,
Well,
we
they
have
are
C's
correct.
in there.
Answer is B, too many choices without clear criteria for evaluation. Question 3, who is most directly impacted by decision fatigue in community associations?
Oh, good. We have a mix of answer letters this time. The last course it was all B's.
Oh, these slides were all B's too, and they came to me. I changed it around. So, all right. Well,
Our AI
question.
agent
We have
that's
fixed
not
that
catching
since we
Yeah,
were having
no,
a
it.
little issue where we were getting
no
all
worries.
answers were being given.
Yeah.
in the same, and I'm like,
You can't trust
do
the
not.
AI agents. You can't
Yeah,
trust the AI agents.
you have to
All
Well,
yell
A's
at
coming
them.
in.
well, this one is A, so board members serving as volunteer leaders. So good.
Yeah.
Question 4, what is a recommended solution for reducing board decision fatigue?
Got some fast fingers. B. Fast readers.
They are moving quick.
Hmm.
So, yep, it
They're
is
like,
B,
we want to go to
using
lunch.
structured frameworks. Yeah, trying to give them a little time back. So,
That's good.
yeah, limiting choices to the strongest 2 or 3 will help, definitely work, or using a decision matrix. Question 5, what happens when board decisions are inconsistent over time?
All right. Okay, this is a slower. People had to read. Lots of C's coming in.
Well, they are smart. So, correct answer is C. It creates confusion and inefficiency. Question 6, what is the key benefit of limiting choices presented to the board?
Mm, okay. D.
That is it. So, hopefully, by limiting decisions, you'll get faster, high quality decisions with less conflict. Question 7, what most commonly leads to reactive landscaping and maintenance spending?
Got a lot of C's coming through.
That is it. C.
There you go.
So, lack of planning and deferred decisions. Question 8, how can CAMs most effectively help guide board decisions?
No, it's a slower one. B. B's are coming in. All B's.
That is it. So, if you can provide structured recommendations with clear criteria and trade-offs, should help with decision fatigue. 9, what most effectively improves board consensus and decision quality?
Okay, A's are coming in.
We have a smart group with us today. So, yeah.
Always a B on the boardroom. Always.
Yeah. And our last question is, what is the most significant long-term benefit of structured decision making in HOAs?
And B's.
That is it. Community stability, consistent standards, and reduced board burnout.
Everybody
Uh,
passes.
yeah. So those are the questions. I forgot to take this one out of here. Sorry. This was the thing I told you of trip hazard. So I work with a buddy here in Jacksonville as well on anything that you guys may have around your communities for any kind of concrete stuff. So sorry for that. You can always contact me if you do. But again, thank you for joining us today. That is all my information. If you guys have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out either through that mobile number or through my email.
Thank you, Billy. I also put his contact information in the chat if you want to cut and paste it. It's his email and VerdeGo's website. I always recommend that you take a picture of this. We do have a question about how we get access to this recording. And it is excellent, Tracy says. Thank you, Tracy, for the feedback for Billy. We we put past courses, and I'll put it into the chat now as well. All of our past courses, including the ones with Billy's past, are at this link if everybody wants to bookmark it so that they can share any of the presentations with board members and fellow CAMs. But also, if you find a presentation like this one that you feel is excellent that you want to share with board members, just contact Billy directly and he can get you something to send over to the decision makers above you. Thank you, Billy.
Sure.
Doesn't
All
look like
right.
we have any questions for you this morning. Everyone's
Okay.
probably ready to go to lunch.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you
Thank
guys
you.
so much. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks for